Hello, Sierra. Thank you so much for being part of this interview, and thank you again for answering the questions. So first of all, could you tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, your interests, maybe outside of just admissions?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Sierra Kinslow. I am originally from Maryland in the US, so I grew up just outside of the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area. And then for my undergraduate experience, I came to Messiah University, where I work now. So I am an alum of this institution. I graduated in 2017 with my bachelor's degree in psychology. And then I also did my master's through Messiah. And so I finished that degree in 2020 in higher education. So I've been at Messiah now, including my educational experience and work experience. It's been about 10 years, which is crazy to say. But yeah, love this community and love this area here in central Pennsylvania. Um, I I don't know. I feel like I don't have a ton of like hobbies or things that I do outside of like work and spending time with friends and family. Currently, I'm in a PhD program, so unfortunately, that takes a lot of my free time. But I really love education, and I'm really passionate about education. So, I don't hate it. I like learning. I like being in classes and kind of the workload that that brings. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me and my connection to Messiah.
Wow, that's an amazing background and amazing connections that you have, really. So where are you right now in at the university?
Yeah, so I am in our brand new admissions and welcome center. It's our newest building on campus, and I'm sitting in one of our conference rooms. And all of our conference rooms where we meet with prospective students and their families. We have these kind of like murals on the walls that highlight different areas about Messiah. And so this conference room highlights kind of the faith side of the educational experience. We have one that focuses on like career opportunities, another one that focuses on like cross-cultural and study abroad opportunities. So yeah, we have several of these rooms in this building. This is also where my office is. But yeah, it's our newest building on campus.
What is one thing that you think everyone should know about Messiah?
Mm. Um, well, I think our name says a lot about what we consider to be important about the educational experience, in that your faith is something that Messiah takes really seriously in the educational experience. And I think that is something that kind of sets us apart from some other institutions that you might consider that might be like state universities or public schools. So yeah, if developing your faith is something that is important to you or something you're looking for in your college experience, that is something that Messiah University really encourages in our students, and is definitely something that you will get to develop your spiritual walk during your time in university.
So the campaign for Messiah University is Learning for Life, Transforming the World. Could you expand more on about that?
Yeah, of course. Um, so as a educational institution, whether you end up at Messiah or another university, you're obviously there to learn about something, to prepare for whatever career it is that you're interested in, whether it's teaching, nursing, engineering. You have that 4 years or so to learn about that particular career path. Um, but beyond the 4 years that you're spending here at Messiah and whatever your next step is, we really do encourage our students to embody this idea of lifelong learning. So as much as you're here for 4 years, like we hope that you get some transferable skills that not only help you in your years here and in your specific career that you've prepared for, but in every aspect of your life, that you have the critical thinking skills and problem solving skills to apply to just about every and any area of your life. And when that's done correctly or holistically, we believe it does lead to a transformed life and learning experience, because um, you're not just being spoon fed information and told to just take everything at face value, but you have the ability to ask questions, think critically, and really kind of come to terms with what it is that you believe, what it is that you know, and then how you then live that out in the world even after you graduate from Messiah. So it is something that not only impacts your educational experience here, but also once you're done with the university experience.
Okay. That's a really good motto and something that I think all of the viewers would definitely want to keep in mind. Now moving on to some more like serious questions about the process. What does the application look like for an international student applying to Messiah?
Yeah, great question. So first step would be filling out the application form, which you would be able to fill out starting the July before your senior year. And so you can fill that application form out either on Messiah's website or on Common App. So you have a couple of options. In addition to the application form itself, Messiah, we require a essay as part of the application, as well as your high school transcript. So you'll have to work with your guidance office on getting that sent over to us. Messiah is test optional, so we don't require SAT, ACT scores or anything like that. But you're welcome to submit them if you've taken them and you're a good test taker and you got a good score. You can still submit them. For international students specifically, if you're coming from a school where you are being taught in English, then you don't have to submit a TOEFL or an IELTS or any like English proficiency scores. The only time you would have to submit those is if you're being taught in a school that is where the primary language is something other than English. And then the last piece for international students specifically is related to the visa process. So part of our US government rule is that before we can issue your visa, we have to know that you can afford the education that you're coming to the US for. So as part of the application process, we require students to submit financial documents and an affidavit of support to demonstrate that you and your family have the funds to pay for your education here at Messiah. So that is really the only piece that's different than other students and the documents they have to submit. And that's because it's related to the visa. But yeah, that's kind of it for the application process and then the documents that you would have to submit.
Are there any specific admission criteria or considerations for any international students when applying to the university that the admissions would take into consideration?
Not really. I mean, we take a holistic approach to application review. So the only difference, like I mentioned, is those financial documents. And if you have to submit like English proficiency scores, those would be the only different application or admissions criteria that we would consider. But in terms of like GPA, kind of involvement and things like that, like it's all the same whether you're an international student or a US citizen.
Are there any reserved seats or quotas for specific students, and what are the eligibility criteria for those?
Yeah. So we don't have quotas for particular groups of students. I don't know how familiar you all are with some of the things that have been happening in the Supreme Court in the US lately. But the Supreme Court just overturned a major rule on affirmative action, which is something that a lot of US universities have used in terms of like quotas, diversity, recruitment, that kind of thing. So that is technically like no longer allowed at the university level in the US. But even prior to the overturning of that, Messiah never had specific quotas or seats for certain students. We do, as an admissions office, have a goal of the number of students we would like to recruit for the next class. But yeah, that's not siloed off by specific race or citizenship status or anything like that. It's really just an overall goal to enroll a certain number of students so we have the right kind of revenue coming in. So yeah, there's no quotas or specific caps or seats or anything.
Are there any specific entrance exams or additional requirements that are like specific to each like program or each specific college within Messiah?
Yeah, so in terms of general admission, no. As long as you meet the admission requirements and you submit the documents that I mentioned earlier, there aren't extra exams that you would need to take. There are a few majors on our campus that have specific admission requirements and kind of like prerequisite courses. And really, those programs are nursing, engineering, and then some of our like accelerated or early assurance programs for like occupational therapy, physical therapy, those kinds of degrees. And so really, as long as you're taking the like math and science courses that you would need to be in a major like nursing or engineering, you'll be fine. Really, the big thing is like we just don't want students to apply for an engineering major, for example, and have never taken like pre-calculus, because we don't want you to come in and not have kind of that foundational knowledge before getting into your degree. But yeah, those are really the only specific programs that have different requirements for admission.
Now moving on to some more fun like application things that you've seen in the past. What is an example of a significant application aspect that made you say yes to a student?
Hmm. Um, I think, like I mentioned earlier, like Messiah takes a holistic approach to application review. So it's not just your transcript and test scores and how well you've done academically, but it's also seeing the kinds of clubs you've been involved in, leadership opportunities. And so I think seeing students that not only have done well academically, but seeing that they've been president of a certain club at their school or have a part-time job or help out with their younger siblings at home. Like I think seeing the well-rounded student is something that I always look for and we like to see coming to university because you're not just going to be in class and studying all the time. There are lots of opportunities to get involved on campus and get connected. So we want to ensure that the students coming into our campus have already kind of lived that out in their high school experience too. So yeah, I think seeing well-rounded students that have been involved in other clubs and organizations and part-time jobs and things like that, those are always positive things to see.
What's the most unconventional hobby or talent that a applicant has showcased, and how did that impress you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've seen a few more students that have like started their own business. So whether it's um they have like an artsy kind of background and so they sell like paintings or like do graphic design or something and or like students who have started their own like lawn care business and have like a little side hustle, like making money in their community. I think seeing those kinds of experiences definitely show a level of initiative and tenacity for students that want to kind of branch out there and not only have fun, explore another hobby, but also kind of like make money on the side. Yeah, those are really, really cool to see and to see then how they often end up in majors like business or management and wanting to then try to take that little business that they started and take it further. So those are always really cool and maybe unique things that we see occasionally.
If a student faced significant challenges during high school, how could they best like highlight their resilience in the application process?
Yeah, I always tell students that they can and should address that in their essay when they apply, because that's kind of the really the only free writing space that you have to talk about any challenges that you've had, whether it was academic or like family, personal challenges, and just give the admissions committee more knowledge about if there's gaps in your record or we see like a dip in academic performance, like that's really a good place to explain that. Another option would be to connect with the admissions counselor at the school that you're applying to and just letting them know. Because your admissions counselor will be your advocate with the admissions committee when it comes to making those decisions. So, as much as they can be aware of what happened, why it happened, how you've grown and exhibited things like resilience. Yeah, definitely share that with your admissions counselor, and they can kind of go to bat for you and make sure that your story is portrayed to the people that are making the decisions.
On the topic of application essays, are there any examples that you've maybe came across and said, "Wow, I've never seen that before," or "Wow, that's so amazing"?
Yeah. Um, I think we can, as admissions counselors and application readers, I think we can always tell the students that took time and effort to really like craft their essay and didn't just sit down, like type a couple of sentences and then submit it, you know? So I think the students that really take time to reflect on the question, reflect on their experiences, and convey that in a concise and effective way, those are always encouraging to see. And I do kind of stress the idea of a concise essay, because we're not looking for like 3 or 4 pages of you just kind of rambling on and on and on. But how do you kind of synthesize your thoughts into a couple of really solid paragraphs, but still answer the question? That's another thing that maybe not on the positive side, but on the negative side that we've seen a lot is students that just like copy and paste an essay from something else that they've written, and paste it into the application, but then it doesn't answer the question that we've asked. So I think, yeah, as much as you can address the prompt, and take time to really reflect on your own experiences, and how that answers the question. Those are really, really encouraging and positive essay examples.
In our digital age right now, how do you feel about creative digital portfolios or personal websites as part of the application?
Yeah, so they're not required as part of the application, but we have had a few students submit them, and I think it's like I said earlier, I think it kind of goes back to seeing that holistic side of the student and giving some of those more creative examples of things you've been involved in, or ways that you choose to express yourself. Um, and for students that are interested in like the arts or like graphic design or something like that, we do have scholarships associated with those programs. And so submitting things like a digital portfolio or something like that for the art program specifically, can be really helpful in terms of scholarship consideration. So yeah, if students have those kinds of resources and materials, definitely encourage them to submit it.
How have you come across any extraordinary community service projects initiated by applicants?
Mm. Yeah, I think I have been encouraged to see some of the mission trips or community service opportunities that students have done, especially in connection with like their churches or youth groups. I've seen students that travel internationally for like a couple of weeks to work with like an orphanage in Honduras, or a ministry in Germany. And so, yeah, seeing them take advantage of those opportunities is really cool, especially when it takes you into another culture or another place where you're not just ministering to people and serving them in that way, but you're also learning yourself about a different place, a different culture. And I think experiences like that just really broaden students' worldviews. So yeah, any opportunity that you have to connect with a community that's different than your own, yeah, it looks good on an application, but I think more importantly, I think it changes and shapes you as a person. And yeah, and that's something that might be a little bit like intangible in an application, but then when faculty and staff get to meet you and talk to you and learn more about this person that you've become because of that experience, yeah, those are really great opportunities.
What are some of the most popular majors at the university?
Yeah, so our largest, most popular programs are engineering, nursing, business, education, and the like applied health sciences. So like kinesiology, athletic training, physical therapy, occupational therapy, those kinds of degrees. So yeah, those five are most popular, just in the sense that they enroll the largest percentage of students every year. But Messiah, we have over 80 different majors. So just because those are the top five doesn't mean the rest of our majors are any less than that. But yeah, those are the ones that are most popular right now.
If a student wanted to change a major, say mid-year, how would they transfer their course credits?
Yeah, so that would be a conversation they would have with their academic advisor. So when every student enrolls, they are assigned an advisor. That's a faculty member in their major's department. And so that person will kind of be with them for as long as they're in that major. And so if at any point a student wants to change their major, they can just talk to their academic advisor and kind of go through the paperwork of changing their major. And then, yeah, their academic advisor would be the person to kind of help them navigate what credits they've already taken, which ones they need to take, and how that transition can happen. I'd say it's definitely really popular for students to change their majors. So, for those of you that might be uncertain about what you want to study or are nervous about committing to one thing, I would say not to stress too much about it because students do often change their major, and it's really easy to do, especially if you're changing majors within similar degrees. So for example, like if you're changing from like a psychology major to something like social work or human development and family science, like those degrees are all similar in the social science realm. But if you're switching from like engineering to music in your junior year, like they're so different and can take a lot of potentially extra semesters to complete the necessary requirements. So, but yeah, if you have interests kind of in a similar area, it's super easy to switch your major.
Now, after Messiah, where do most students go off to?
Yeah, that's a hard question because I think our students have quite a range of post-graduation plans. Um, a number of students go on to graduate school after they're finished. So depending on your major and your career prospects, some careers require you to have at least a master's degree before you can really like practice or do anything in that field. So a lot of students do pursue that route. We have a number of students that end up staying kind of in the central Pennsylvania area and working for a company here in the Messiah area, often because they had an internship or something working with that company. And then that internship turned into a full-time job offer. So internships and kind of making that then career connection are really popular for a lot of students. But then we also have students that end up going home to wherever that is, whether that's in Texas, California, Malaysia, wherever they're from. Some students will end up going back home and getting a job there as well. So you really do have a lot of options depending on if you want to stay in the Messiah area, if you want to move closer to home, or you just want to go somewhere completely different. I think Messiah students are set up really well to go wherever their heart desires after graduation.
Now, moving on to some finances, what are some types of scholarships or financial aid that are available for underprivileged students and how can they apply for them?
Yeah. So our scholarship application process is all kind of wrapped up in that initial admission application that students submit. So there actually aren't separate applications that students have to fill out for our different scholarships. When you apply and we review your application for admission, we're also considering you for scholarships. So it's all kind of done in that one application. And 100% of students that apply to Messiah receive a merit scholarship. So if you're admissible to our university, you will receive a scholarship. Your academic profile and involvement opportunities will just determine how high that scholarship is. So it's a range of about 10 to 16,000 US dollars per year for that kind of base level merit award. And then we have other scholarships that can be stacked on top of that base level award. Like I mentioned, the art scholarships earlier. We have an honors program that has some scholarships associated with it. And again, those would all be stacked on top of those other merit scholarships. And then we also have need-based scholarships, both for domestic and international students. And so again, I think that kind of encompasses students and families who might not who don't have the same resources that other families do. And so when you're submitting your affidavit of support and those financial documents, we can take all of that into consideration to kind of formulate a need-based scholarship for you as well. So between merit aid and need-based aid, you have a pretty decent financial aid package to help with the cost of attendance.
How can students request for fee waivers or discounts throughout the application process?
Yeah, so Messiah, we actually offer application fee waivers often throughout the year. So for those of you, when you apply, kind of at the beginning of your senior year, the application is automatically free from July until November 15th. So if you apply anywhere in that window, it's already free. But if you apply after November 15th, we always have promo codes that run typically around like holidays. So we'll have like a Christmas promo code, a Valentine's Day one. Like, so there's often promo codes running throughout the year. So if you miss that November 15th cutoff, again, just reach out to me or an admissions counselor, and we can give you whatever the promo code is for that season.
What are some documents required for the financial aid application?
Yeah, so really the only thing other than the general kind of admission requirements like transcript and things like that are those financial documents that I mentioned earlier. So Messiah, we have an affidavit of support. And in addition to that form, families will have to submit like bank statements or a bank letter, something that kind of is proof of whatever finances they've listed in the affidavit. So it's just those two things together that we use for the need-based side of things.
Now moving on to more about the college life, how would you describe the school community?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a word we use here a lot is the word community. We are a pretty tight-knit community here. That's all about kind of living in community together and experiencing community together. Because we are relatively small, so we have about 2,500 undergrad students, and most of them live on campus. So we are a residential school. So I think there's something special about that small to medium-sized community that lives together, eats together, goes to classes together. It does kind of have a family kind of feel. We are also kind of in like a suburb of central Pennsylvania, so we're not like in a city. So our campus is pretty like outdoorsy. Like there's a lot of outdoor space and green space. We have a creek that runs through campus, so students like being down by the water and either hammocking or going kayaking down the Breeches. So yeah, I would say community, outdoorsy, and yeah, just really like well connected.
How big is an average class size on campus?
Yeah, average class size is about 20 to 25 students. So yeah, we don't have a lot of classes that are like massive lecture halls of hundreds and hundreds of students. You might have some like intro level courses that might be a little bit bigger than 20. Like I think some of our like intro to chemistry, basic level bio classes, those might be like 40 to 45 students. But then with those science classes, even though the lecture is large, often the lab is kind of split in half. So you're not in the lab with as many people and you have more space to kind of work. But yeah, I would say average class size is about 20 to 25 students.
How do students transport around the city?
Yeah, so I would say most students, if they don't have a car on campus, they'll just take an Uber. Like I said, because we're in a suburb, like we don't have like public transportation that runs through campus. So if you want to get off campus, but you don't have a car or none of your friends do, it's really easy and pretty cheap to get an Uber from campus to really anywhere in the area, or our closest city is Harrisburg, and that's the capital of Pennsylvania, and it's about a 15-minute drive from campus. So Harrisburg has a lot to offer if you're looking to get into the city.
Are there any clubs in the school community?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have over 60 different clubs that students can join. Some of them are related to like academic programs, like our education program has a educators club. Our business department has an investment club. But then we also have things like music ensembles for those of you that like singing or playing an instrument. You can join those ensembles. We also have athletics. So we're a NCAA Division III school. So we have sports for the varsity teams. We also have club and rec teams as well. And then we have other just like random clubs. Like we have an outdoors club. We have an esports team for those of you that like video games. So yeah, lots to offer in terms of clubs and organizations. And every orientation week, we have an opportunities fair where all of the clubs have set up like a table in our student union. So it functions a lot like a college fair where you can walk around, talk to the representatives, and learn about the different clubs. So you'll have that opportunity to kind of explore what all there is to offer.
What is one unique tradition that is often seen at Messiah?
Yeah. So first, a couple things that come to mind. We just moved in our first year students last week, so everyone is just getting back to campus. And at the end of the last move-in day, we have a tradition of hosting a candlelight service, where it's kind of like a final send-off and a final like service to start the academic year. And so it's often a very like emotional time because that's usually family and students like last time together before parents go home and now your student is staying here at the university. But it always ends where we turn the lights off in the gym and everyone lights a candle. And so the gym is just lit up by thousands of candles. And yeah, that's a tradition that we do at the beginning of every academic year. Um, but then on the more fun side of things, during orientation week, the first year residence halls have the Res Hall games, where the three different residence halls compete in these like outdoor games to see which dorm will win for that academic year. So yeah, those are always fun times, and everyone dresses up in their like dorm color, and they'll do like face paint and glitter and kind of show that like team spirit. So yeah, res hall games are also a pretty popular tradition at the beginning of the year.
Uh, Specifically for international students, what does the campus look like regarding race diversity?
Yeah, so Messiah is we are a predominantly white campus. So most of our students come from the majority culture here in the US. But about 25% of our campus population are people from underrepresented backgrounds. So either international students, missionary kids, um, third culture kids, or even like domestic people of color. So they might not have lived internationally, but their families clearly come from a line of culture that's different than the white majority here in the US. So we are definitely growing, I would say, in terms of our international student of color kind of population. But we do have a lot of resources available for multicultural and international students to ensure that they feel like they have that community, they have that support system, and they have that I don't know, just that sense of like I know who I can go to if I want to talk about the things I miss from home or the food or weather and all of the things that come with that like homesickness from being somewhere different.
Furthering on this question, are there any clubs specific to international students?
Yeah, so we have a International Student Association, which is a club that is run by and 100% for our international students who come from abroad. And that's not exclusively just for international, like foreign citizens, but it's also for like we have a number of US citizens who have lived abroad for most of their life and resonate more with the international community than the US like domestic community. So yeah, there's a lot of support through that International Student Association. both in terms of, again, kind of having that like support system, but also having opportunities to share their culture, and kind of educate the rest of campus and celebrate their culture, in fun ways.
Now, wrapping up this interview, what is one advice that you have for all future prospective students?
Um, I'd say first and foremost, I think um, I'd say keep your eyes and your perspective open as you go into the college search process. I think it can be easy to either hone in on a school that your parents went to or that you have a friend going to, and really kind of missing some of those other really cool opportunities that are out there. So I would say keep an open mind, and just be open to the process, but also don't be afraid to ask questions. If you are struggling or feel uncertain about it, every college and university has an admissions staff to support you. And we literally wouldn't have a job if you didn't ask us questions. So it's literally what we're here for. And so don't be afraid to reach out if you do feel uncertain about the process. Like, we are more than happy to help.
Thank you so much, Sierra, again for your time and for this interview. I'm sure I've learned a lot, and I'm sure that all of the viewers would have learned a lot. And I definitely want to apply so much more now to Messiah after hearing your story on how Messiah is and everything. So thank you again for your time. And I think I'm gonna wrap up this interview.
Okay, sounds great.